There's Rose. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Rosie. I've just seen Rosie Jackson enter, which is nice, which is handy.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, everybody. We're just missing Steve. Will you keep an eye out for Sarah Thomas? I don't know why you would see her.
I'm here.
There you are. Brilliant.
Hello.
Yeah. Fantastic. Oh, we've got a full house. Excellent. And hopefully you can all hear me all right.
The thing is, this is bad, isn't it? No.
Okay. Good background noise going on. Who's that? I always forget I'm supposed to, when I say I have a checklist before an event and I have make sure everyone's muted when they come in on my list, and I always forget to do it. But I did remember to take the doorbell sound off for when people are entering, so that's a good one. So we're not going to get a billion doorbells going in the middle of a reading, so that's good. Okay, hi everybody. It's lovely to have such a fantastic big old crowd with us tonight to help us celebrate launching issue 4 of our glorious little magazine. Issue 4. It's winter, but in almost spring. Issue 4, 4 whole issues of our brilliant magazine, 4 issues celebrating and validating the rural experience, 4 issues full of columnists, of creative non-fiction, of poetry, outstanding poetry, writing prompts, author interviews. We've done good there, Steve, I think. And I'm really, really excited about it. And I'm really excited to have you all here tonight to launch this brilliant thing. What I'm going to ask you to do in just a second is mute yourselves so that we don't get any interference when the readers are reading. Excuse me. And then we're going to go straight in and we're going to go into our readers, our contributors. We've got 2 fantastic guest speakers tonight, guest readers in Polly Atkin and James McDermott. Hello to you both, and thank you for giving up your time tonight. I know loads of people have come to see you both, which is really exciting. Polly is our author interview. James, who's a previous contributor, has also done our writing prompt for the magazine this time. I will remind you, and Steve is going to remind you, he's going to put it in the chat occasionally, that Spelt is open for sales and subscriptions. And we also have a donation button, or a series of donation buttons, because I couldn't get the right one to work, on the site. If you think we're doing a good job, if you think we could do better if we had just a little tiny bit more money, please think about bunging us a tip. We're grifting tonight. Okay. If you can all mute yourselves, that would be extremely handy. Thank you. I can see that everyone is muted. And we are going to kick off with our first contributor tonight, which is Oliver Cable. Oliver.
Hello.
Hi. Steve, are you able to share the screen? Brilliant. I'm going to introduce Oliver. Can you all see that? Yes, lovely. Oliver Cable is a writer based in London after having grown up in the Netherlands, which is exotic and brilliant. His writing seeks out the knife edge of reality where dreams, metaphor and reality merge. His debut novel even, Fresh Air and Empty Streets, was published in 2016. His writing has since appeared in publications including Athleta, Devon Life, Maintenance, Corvus Review, Across the Margin and the A3 Review. And I am so excited to have him here reading some of this creative non-fiction, because it is just brilliant. It's such high quality. You know, when you come across a submission and it jumps out at you because of the quality of the writing, this is one of those. So I'm going to let you speak now, Oliver. I'm going to shut my gob and I'm going to let you go for it. Thank you, Oliver.
Thank you, Wendy. That's very flattering comments. Yeah, my name's Oliver Cable, and I'm going to read an excerpt of The Day the Rivers Froze. The ferry that normally bobs beside the ice is encased. The ferry that normally bobs beside the jetty is encased in ice. Perplexed ducks stand on cold, hard water. The morning is a hive of activity. As I pull off my boots, there's people climbing the banks and crawling over the footpaths from the nearest canals, keeping the blades of their precious skates off the tarmac. An older man with wild hair and sunglasses is helped down onto the ice with his bicycle and wheels it across the river. No one bats an eyelid. Like cycling, skating resides in muscle memory. It's 3 years since I last stood blade-toed on frozen water. That was Somerset House in central London, a man-made, temperature-controlled piece of ice. You might as well have been skating on plastic. This is a river, 8 meters deep and 220 meters across. Thick snow fell a week ago and has made no effort to thaw. The Netherlands has slipped into the Arctic Circle. Cars throw up cold dust and slip round corners. Trains are rare and overfull. Until the canals froze, getting around was nigh on impossible. When liquid, water reflects the skies. When solid, it reflects the heavens. Looking down through fresh ice, there's nothing but darkness and constellations of trapped air. The sun dissolves itself into the depths, becomes the moon, its outlines blurred by scuffs and sharp blades. There's 2 tracks by the opposite bank of traversed ice, one upstream, one down. I look both ways, then slip into a groove pushing south towards the city. I feel the sublime weightlessness of the glide, first on one side, then on the other. The wind whips waves of ice dust around my ankles, throws cold into my face. My nose is running, my cheeks are numb.
Fantastic. Thank you, Oliver. That is just so beautiful. It's so atmospheric. Lovely. Fantastic. Okay, next up, without a pause, we have got, if you don't forget that you can leave messages in chat, and I'm sure the readers and contributors will be really pleased to read them and see what you thought of their work. Say nice things about my contributors. Next up, we've got Victoria Gatehouse. Vicky, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
There she is, lovely. Really excited to have Vicky in the magazine. She is a top class writer, and I've worked with Vicky before. She is just brilliant in all things, especially poems. So I'm going to introduce you, Vicky. I am unmuted, yes. Vicky. Victoria Gatehouse is a poet and researcher. She lives in a village in the Pennines and walks on the moors every day with her dog. Her work has been published in many magazines, including The North, Poetry News, Magma, Mislexia, and The Realtor. Competition wins include Ilkley, Otley, Penfro, and the Indigo International Wild Nature Poetry Award. Victoria's second pamphlet, The Mechanics of Love, published by Smith Dorstop, was selected as a laureate's choice in 2019. That is an impressive CV, and I am so happy to have you here, Victoria. Take it away.
Thank you, Wendy. I'll try and live up to that. I really appreciate the introduction. Hi, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here and to have a poem in this wonderful magazine. So I live in the Pennines, and this poem was inspired by a walk I do most days with my dog. And rather than being transfixed by the amazing Pennine landscape, I was transfixed by some rather unusual marigolds. And I should say that I always thought marigolds were really, I don't know, really run-of-the-mill flower, but actually I found out quite a bit of interesting stuff about them and their associations with Day of the Dead in Mexico, where vast altars of marigolds are laid out, and the scent and the colour of them is supposed to literally draw the dead back to the land of the living just for a day to be with their relatives, which I thought was quite poignant. So I thought I'd try and bring a bit of Mexican Day of the Dead to Calderdale. So here's the poem. The man who grows marigolds in urinals. His farm hunches beneath the rim of the moors, thick set to withstand the Pennine winds, which rattle the bones of antique ploughs, lurking like dinosaurs in his yard, beside cartwheels and Belfast sinks, all the disconnected and unplumbed things, like this row of urinals fixed to the wall, shallow bowls of pleated light, marigolds blooming on old seams of piss, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, rising up through root and phloem to flush out velvet hearts. All summer, he nips the heads and they just keep coming, right through to October's end. Halloween, All Souls, Dia de los Muertos, small lamps to guide our ghosts home. Thank you.
Fantastic, just fantastic. I love a poem that takes you somewhere interesting and unique, and that really did that. Thank you, Vicky, thanks. Next up, we've got Elektra Rhodes, who is one of our columnists. Elektra, make yourself known. Where are you? Hello, there you are. Hi, and this is a really special evening because we're saying goodbye to our columnists from year one, and Elektra has just consistently been created these thoughtful, brilliant, beautifully crafted columns, and we're so grateful for the work that she's put in. It's so sad to see her go, and we are going to be having 4 new columnists soon, but it has been just such a joy to work with you, Elektra. I'm going to introduce you properly. E. Rhodes is an archaeologist who lives in Wales and Wiltshire. Wiltshire. Oh, is that my accent? Is that my dialect? Her prose has been widely published in a range of anthologies and journals. Her non-fiction book, My Family and Other Folklore, was recently longlisted for the Nan Shepherd Prize, and her novella of queer, rural, working-class lives recently won the Lewis Walters Books P100 competition. She teaches creative non-fiction for the Crow Collective. Find her on Twitter at Elektra Rhodes. You can look her up. You'll probably all be following her anyway. Elektra, it is a joy to have you here. Thank you for coming along. Take it away.
Oh, Wendy. Oh, thank you. And thank you, Steve, very much for doing the technicals. I can see the technical. I've got my own copy. I'm going to read from my copy. This is called Common Ground. The tree at the centre of the allotment has a few refuse-nick apples hanging on. Most of the plot edges have crumbled with the first frosts, and spidered silk scarves festoon the straggled fruit canes. I watch as one of my neighbours swipes at a long strand caught in her hair. Last year, she tells me, gesturing at the tree, the last few froze and rotted inside the ice. Only the ghost apples remained. I say I'd like to see that. The allotment has a waiting list, but our neighbour promises it's worth signing up. There's plenty of camaraderie on the site, as well as piped water and sensible rules. I hesitate. It's the nature of renting, seasonal work or short-term contracts to see maybe only one round of plant and harvest. It's hard to put down roots, and there's no incentive for the temporary resident or worker to try. She knows our tenancy is only for 12 months. I recognise the olive branch and agree that I'll look. She offers me tea from her flask, but I demur. I see her out here most days. Perhaps, were it not for the restrictions of COVID, it might be easier to get to know each other. The large Georgian buildings accommodate 15 households, a mix of singles and couples. It's like many minor stately homes around the country. Death duties in the 2 big wars of the 20th century did for them. Most have been converted into flats, schools, out-of-town spas, or clinics of various kinds. It's our second time renting in a house like this. The last one was a flat in an Elizabethan castle, its photograph on the cover of the County Pevsner. This place is less grand, but it's warmer. The windows are less likely to fall out, and there are no mullions to crumble. My friendly neighbour starts to leave regular cards in our postbox. I sent her some in return. I hadn't expected the neighbourliness, and I'm not sure I'm much good at it. The uprootedness extending from the horticultural into the social. We like this place because there are different kinds of walk within a minute of the house. A small nature reserve, a park with more than 100 trees with preservation orders attached, a public footpaths lacing the fields in every direction. All the common wealth of public access is a respite from the trespassing that was our main option last year. The presence of the allotment only 2 minutes from the back door is an unexpected bonus, another permissible path. When we first arrived, I took my partner on a tour of the remaining traces of summer fruit and vegetables. The plots were well laid out, and even in early winter there was evidence of regular usage. Now, at the end of December, my neighbour is still the only person I've actually seen. Just like the nature reserve, human and animal presence is marked by absence. Sprouts picked, ivy gone, holly stripped of berries. Today, at the site's gate, there's a sign promising a consultation on a proposed development that could swallow half the neighbouring field, the allotment and the nature reserve. I walk slowly through the rows. There's ice on the apples. It won't happen, my neighbour says, pointing back the way I came. We won't let it. I notice the we, but say nothing. She hands me a fork and we turn the compost heap. Then she offers me tea again. This time I brought a mug. Perhaps a year is long enough for such things to bear fruit.
Fantastic. I love this idea of ghost apples. I just love it. What a fantastic image. And just beautifully, your writing is so beautifully paced. Oh, it's just gorgeous. Okay, so rattling on in our smorgasbord of contributors, we have got Paul Booth. Paul,
Hi.
there.
Hi, Wendy. Hi, everyone.
Hi. Lovely to have you here, Paul. Let me
Thank you.
introduce Paul. Paul has lived in Yorkshire for more than half his life, having been born and raised in the fenlands of East Anglia. There he grew to love the big skies and the wide openness of the landscape, especially when he worked as a sales rep for a food wholesaler, visiting village stores in the area. In Yorkshire, he enjoys the rich contrast of fell and dale. He's been writing poetry on and off for 30 years. And I am obviously from Yorkshire and would agree with everything you say about how brilliant it is. Thank you, Paul. I'm really excited to hear you read this. Fantastic. I'll let you take it away. Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. Thanks very much. It's a privilege to be included in Spelt. I've been writing a long time, but I'm quite new to having things published and always pleased when it happens. Yeah, since I've been living in Yorkshire, I've discovered that people who grow up with the hills find it difficult to appreciate the flatlands. Having grown up in the flatlands, I appreciate and love the flatlands, but also the hills. I think that's a one-way journey. So this is a celebration of fenland. Where I grew up, skies are wide. Ebony earth lies like vinyl disc with ploughed grooves, lyrical loam. Fenlands, like a good Manhattan, 2 parts sky, 1 part land, with a dash of bitters. The cherries, a heron flying low, the colour of movement on a vast grey landscape, separated by drains filled with water blackened by the soil. Rich, celery-scented soil, black as coal, but soft, silky, spawning stubble of oats and naked stalk of sprout. Skylarks song fly high all summer, geese skein inky skies in autumn, and hoopers skid Welney ice in winter. Wurzels litter never-ending vistas of sable earth. In my day, barge and wagon took beat by ooze and drove to Queen Adelaide's Sugar Palace. Where I grew up, the boundless breadth of this drained mere took my breath away. A Pacific ocean of sedge and dust at the edge of sanity. Its places sang their names to me. Hilgy, Southery, 10 Mile Bank, Emneth, Prickwillow, Piemore where great Uncle Percy milled the flour, baked the bread, then took it round by horse and cart for spreading with home-churned butter. Here, lean trees flail against the brackening wind running wild, like cheetahs in a dust storm. Fenmen struggle, careworn. Tiger wives dig deep in grit to make home in these astringent, beguiling boondocks.
That is a poem and a half.
Thank you.
That is gorgeous. It's so centered. All these place names are just, I love poetry with place names. I love the way the landscape is embedded within that poem. Just fantastic. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you.
Okay, we are on to John. John Lanyon.
Howdy, howdy.
Hello, hi. Lovely to have you here. John's
Thank
going to
you.
read a poem for us, but let me introduce him. John Lanyon lives in the Cotswolds. He works as gardener, linguist, musician, and writer. That's a varied job you've got there, John.
Yeah, keeps you busy.
Having failed his English literature O-level, he came to love literature through reading it in French and German. Impressive. Eventually, his relationship with English healed. He writes about art, the body, childhood, society, nature, the spirit of places, the secret lives of words. He believes you can create complex things from simple means. What a beautiful bio. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
You take it away.
Okie doke. Well, the secret life of words. The word we're going to work with is curriculum. And I think, let's face it, it's not a very funky word, is it? It's got a kind of nasty educational kind of tinge to it, and it's going to be a kind of long kind of list, and there's going to be a lot of sitting down. But if we kind of crack it open a bit, we find inside this Latin verb perere, to run. So what I'm trying to do in my piece is to kind of present an alternative curriculum, one that's based on movement, senses, and some kind of freedom of choice. Okay, curriculum. Curriculum, from the Latin currere, to run. The thing is to move. Wait, listen, feel. Thinking happens by itself. Be prepared to come home empty-handed. Rest the visual sense. Taste the air. Spend November gathering leaves. Everything you need is already buried deep inside you. There are days poised between movement and rest, when the slightest touch creates a song. Why are you reading this? It must be different for you. It will be different tomorrow. The thing is to move.
So sorry, John, I managed to cock up the sharing on that.
That's all right.
Sorry, and sorry to Steve, who didn't receive it and had a little panic there.
Poetry can be an oral medium, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was beautiful, and you read very, very beautifully as well.
Much.
So it was absolutely captivating.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Okay, next up, we have got Lynn Foote. Lynn.
Hello.
Hello, hi. And I'm so sorry, Lynn, I keep putting the E in your name in a different place every time I write it down, so I apologise for that. I think I've got it right on that one, actually.
Yeah, no worries, Wendy. Everybody gets it wrong, so you shouldn't worry.
Okay. So let me tell you about Lynn, who we have in this issue, and I absolutely love this poem as well. Do you know, I say that about every single poem and every single piece. It's because we spend so much work, so much time picking them and choosing them and rereading them, and it's like knowing them. It's like meeting friends again when you have the launch. It's brilliant. Okay, so Lynn Foote lives in London but grew up in the Lake District. Her collection Kings, a series of poems about the London Resurrection Men, was published by Tamises Press in 2019, and pamphlet Madraki came out with Hearing Eye in 2010. She worked in the ELC at King's College London for many years after teaching at universities in Japan, and completed an MA in poetry and life writing at Goldsmiths in 2012. How wonderful to have you here, Lynn. Thank you for giving up your time tonight. Take it away.
Oh, thanks, Wendy. Hi, everybody. This poem's called A66 because, of course, as many of you know, that's the road that goes from Middlesbrough and ends up in Workington on the, on the west coast. And I stopped off on it in Penrith I mean, I've lived in London for years now, obviously since I was 18 actually, but the Lake District is still kind of etched upon my heart. So this was a poem about my cousin, whose funeral I went to last year. Okay. Driving over Brough, the fell hard, the rain descending, the moor ascending, all the years of childhood ended, or about to be, saving nothing as the coffin lofts into the church, lurched by your lads. Beside your cattle, a line of milk churns upturned, and you the accounting lassie of all that's passing. I'm the last of our family, scrum of Cumbrian gale, bashing windows at your fall into earth. Thanks, cousin, I say. I throw a slingful of turf on your narrow box as farmers pass by, mourning you, tossing fivers. And I recall James saying, never trust the arm of a farmer if a penny pence is in the yard. Thank you.
Thank you. I just love all the internal rhymes in that one. I just think it's so beautiful. It's so lovely to have it in the magazine. Quality stuff.
Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Next up, we've got Sarah Stegen, which I'm probably pronouncing terribly. Is it Sarah or is it Sarah?
It's Sarah.
It is Sarah. Oh, yeah, brilliant. Sarah's going to read some creative non-fiction for us. We like to have a really good mix of creative non-fiction and poetry in the magazine, and Sarah's work just absolutely jumped out at us. It's just, again, another really quality piece of writing. Let me introduce Sarah to you. Sarah Stegen writes about people and the Dutch rural landscape she lives in. Sarah is an inclusion advocate and mother of 2 neurodivergent sons, one a black belt lockpicker, the other a 4th-time Dutch bike trial champion. She's writing a memoir about apples and autism. In June 2022, she will be joining the Rural Writing Institute run by James Rebanks and Catherine Alter. Besides being a writer, she works for Research Centre Art and Society, Groningen. And it is an absolute delight to have you here tonight, Sarah. Take it away, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Wendy. I'm just so happy to be included in this magazine and to have a piece which is part of that memoir in your magazine. And I'm writing about where I live, so I'll just start reading it. Disappearing into the landscape, coasting down the hill, with damp shirts sticking to our backs. We ride down the mega flute we live on one June evening in 2021. My partner and I cycle east, as we often do, after an early dinner. We pass fields with nearly harvest-ready potatoes and sugar beets, sticking out dark green rosettes just above ground, like feathers on a military cap, their sugar hidden in the taproot. And the ribbon-like villages in the distance, where homes are interspersed with farmhouses and enormous red brick barns full of farm machinery, like some giant necklace strung together with different types of colored beads. Straight lines all the way, level fields, orderly crop lines, canals, and roads bordered by ditches, some of them empty, but others filled with rusty water, tinged by remaining pockets of high peat deposits. The lines on the map of the region only tell half the story. Crisscrossing canals used to transport the dug-up peat, now home to mile-long straight arrow villages that sprang up in the landscape afterwards. The other half is the story of the family still living there. The sun is kissing our calves as we go down the Hondsrug, Dutch for dogback, a 70-kilometer long narrow ridge. We live on the southernmost tip of this megaflute. Megascale glacial lineations visible in the landscape, created underneath an ice stream when a glacier pushed glacial till, glacial debris, and sand forward in a process called fluting. The remaining ridge looks like a flute, hence the name. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I was so absorbed in that. I didn't realise you were coming to an end with it. Just brilliant, lovely, lovely writing. Okay, next up, we have got Rosie Jackson. Rosie, make yourself known. There she is. Hi, Rosie. Hi, and it's an absolute delight to have Rosie in the magazine. I'm familiar with her work. I love her collection, Two Girls and a Beehive, which is just beautiful, Stanley Spencer. So it's a real joy to have you here tonight. I'm going to introduce you properly now. Rosie Jackson has a background in teaching, therapy and healthcare. Poetry books include What the Ground Holds, 2014, The Light Box, 2016, Two Girls and a Beehive, Poems about Stanley Spencer, 2020, Aloneness is a Many-Headed Bird with Dawn Gorman, 2020, Light Makes It Easy, 2021. Awards include First Prize Tynemouth 2021, Third Prize Hippocrates 2020, First Prize Poetry Space 2019, First Prize Wells 2018, Second Prize Tolbert 2018, First Prize Stanley Spencer Competition 2017. Blimey, what a CV, what a lineup of incredible things that you won and all those collections. And you are such a good writer, and I'm just ecstatic to have you here and have you in my little magazine as well. So thank you, Rosie, for being here. I'm really looking forward to this. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Wendy. I feel really honoured to be in Spelt. Thank you. So I live in South Devon, and last year I was in West Devon in a forest in the Tamar Valley, and I wrote this poem there. And it's probably unwise to take on Frogsbourne, given how well Seamus Heaney writes about it. But anyway, this was the poem that came. Forest Floor. From my study, the forest looks dark. Douglas fir dark. Bottle green glass I can't see through. The air has turned to water, and the rain feels less like grace than reproach. We have done so much wrong. But when I walk into the hidden trails, I can see easily. Leaf mulch, bracken, lichen, Ivernia prunastri, its silver white mass like miniature hands of phantom messengers. The trails are childishly magical. Mud, puddles, waterfalls rushing to the Tamar, pockets of oak, ash, a beech tree clearing with a swing. And when I loop away from disused mines and rusting machinery, I find pools on the path formed by giant footprints, each one filled with clumps of jellied frogspawn, my first for decades. They're just as they were in school textbooks, thousands of tiny black beginnings, as if someone has been practicing comma after comma. Only 1 in 50 will survive. But soon the forest floor will be itching with baby frogs, gleefully flexing their knees, astonished at their own quickness and bounds. Not one will learn sorrow. Not one will know the grief we feel at leaving our bodies. They will relish the jump into any next story, as pliant as punctuation, ready to swim anywhere.
Glorious, absolutely glorious, and definitely giving Seamus Heaney a run for his money, I think, with that one. Just fantastic, just beautiful, beautiful descriptions. Oh, excellent. Steve gets a chance to speak for a change now. Steve's going to introduce our next guest.
Well, when I find the unmute button. Hello, yes, I get this privilege. I apologize. I know some of you were shocked by the sudden change in tone of voice there. But yeah, with issue 4, as you'll all know, because you're all avid readers of the magazine and you've read it cover to cover several times, and notice that this is also what happens. I did the editorial this month, this issue. We don't do it monthly. We barely do it seasonally. But you will notice on the very first line, I was delighted when I got my copy sent through by Wendy and realized that I'd made the one and only error that I can see in the entire magazine, and it's mine. It's in the very first line of my editorial, where I announce very happily, at this point of year, when we're at this point of year, think I was trying to say at this time of the year but anyway, either way, I messed it up. So I apologize to everyone. But the reason it was me doing the editorial wasn't just some outreach scheme where Wendy was just trying to be nice and, you know, give someone a chance. It was because we have our special feature this, I want to say month, it just comes out, I'm going to say month, this issue, which is the urban rural, which, yeah, it's partly, I think, because we got so many submissions that seem to lean towards the urban as opposed to the rural. And as we specialize in the rural, it seemed unfair to allow those in necessarily. But obviously, there is clearly, it's not an easy, or it seems like an easy binary split, but it's not always. And actually, found that quite often we find people submitting things that actually tackle just that issue, the parts, those borderlands where the two meet, or finding the rural in urban situations, or even the urban in the rural, these sort of things out of place, almost, and it almost feels out of time as well. But absolutely not out of time is our first reader of two from that special section that we have this issue, which is Ian Tatum. I think that's how to pronounce it. Yeah,
Yes.
I wasn't sure whether it was Tatum or Tatum, but we thought we'll go with the way it's spelt. So yes, and it's great to have you in here. We've got some wonderful submissions for the urban rural, but I'm particularly delighted to have yourself and Matt in the second half reading your pieces. Now I've got a slight challenge here because I've got to read the introduction document whilst also then sharing the poem. So bear with me, but I'm on it. So Ian Tatum is a priest in the Church of England who began life in Bletchley in a council estate on the edge of town. Now living mainly in London, he's got a fascination with uncelebrated wild places and their inhabitants. He's written short essays on nature and naturalists and the lives for the Church Times and for other journals. And he's a champion of the writing of Dennis Watkins Pitchford, alias BB. So I'm going to throw it over to Ian as soon as I've got your poem up, which will be in just a second, I promise. Here we go. And Ian's poem, genuinely, as Wendy said, I know we say this sort of thing a lot, and it does sound a bit like when you go and see a band and they say, you know, you're the best crowd ever. But genuinely, I absolutely adore this poem. So
when it comes.
The tension's killing me.
A quick introduction as well. It was having spent a lot of time trapped in London. Barnes Wetland Centre is the sort of place where I often go to meet nature because I can get there very easily by public transport. The hero of this poem is a pigeon, which I spent a lot of time talking to pigeons, this one was slightly different in many ways, but its coloration, it was white with just a few patches of black. So anyway, here is my encounter, not like other birds. White with a necklace of black brush strokes and pink-eyed, with the look of a gentle gull, balancing cautiously on the table edge on your one foot. Not afraid of falling, but wary of me. I saw the others, one with R.S. Thomas eyebrows, but no kindness for your kind. His companion wielding a collapsed umbrella like a policeman breaking up the crowd. Pain or power arousing fury at your weakness, and your temerity to silently voice your need. You flying rat, you vermin, you lame beggar. No, you are an urban rock dove, and like me, a being of elsewhere trying to make a city a home.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ian. You read beautifully as well. So thank you for coming along and sharing that with us tonight. Just gorgeous. And now, the first of our special guest readers, which I am just really excited about. I'm excited about everything. But I'm particularly excited about our two guest readers tonight, the first of which is James McDermott. And James is a previous contributor to Spelt, and he has also very, very kindly written the writing prompt for this issue. And he writes the most incredible, interesting, boundary-pushing poems. And it's just a lovely thing to have him here, giving up his time tonight to come and read for us. So welcome, James. I shall introduce you properly. James McDermott is a queer writer based in East Anglia. His plays published by Samuel French include Rubber Ring and Time and Tide. His poetry collection Monatomy is published by Burning Eye. James's poems have been published in various magazines, including the Gay and Lesbian Review, the Cardiff Review, Pop Shop Quarterly, Confluence and Dawn Treader. James was shortlisted for Outspoken's Performance Poetry Prize 2020 and commended in the Winchester Poetry Prize 2020, judged by Andrew McMillan. And he also has written for EastEnders, which I am, I think, probably the most impressed with. And James, thank you so much for coming along. Thank you for giving up your time, and thank you for having these poems, this set of poems for the first half of our launch event. I'm going to stop talking now. I'm going to let you talk instead. So thank you very much. Take it away.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you for a lovely introduction, and welcome everyone. Pleasure to be here. Forgive me, I've got a really bad cold, so if I can start clearing my throat, that'll be why. But what I'm going to do this evening is start by just mentioning that writing prompt in issue 4. It starts with that idea of my feeling unnatural as a queer person when I was growing up because I'd internalized homophobia. And then in lockdown, I had to be in rural Norfolk where I live, and started seeing the queerness of nature, if you like, just spending more time in the natural world. I saw how camp and loud and excessive it is, and suddenly became obsessed with this idea of the queerness of nature, researching statistics about animals, being fascinated by this idea that water is fluid bodies and is constantly changing its form. And that prompted in 2020 the start of a new pamphlet, which is going to come out in December with Broken Sleep Books. And I'm going to read you a selection of those poems this evening from that pamphlet that I've been working on with a poet called Richard Scott, who's been looking after me through the writing of that book. So this first poem is called Stallion. And like lots of the poems in the pamphlet, it will explore that link between queerness, nature, and feeling unnatural as a queer person. So Stallion. Trudging through autumn fields, I find a lone pony, bag on its mouth, and I'm 13 again, in the farmyard of the school changing rooms. A tall, muscly stallion kicks me to bleached tiles. I land on all fours. He forces my head into his sports bag to sniff his salt sweet shorts. He snorts, stamps, sprays, trots off to the showers. I hear the slam of locker doors and picture prisons. But it's a gate being closed. In this field, I wander on, thinking about that animal, praying he has been put down. Thank you. So this next piece is called The Weight. And when I was growing up, I, as I said, kind of subjected to lots of homophobia. And one way of dealing with that, I couldn't control the outside world, but I could control my body and my weight. And I suffered with an eating disorder when I was growing up, and lots of that was linked to not being able to control sexual feelings, but also that outside world. So this is a poem about that. It's called The Weight. You call me out as fruit because I am born with a pink lady atop my head. To be tiny target, I eat nothing but Granny Smiths. You mark me light in the loafers. To become light, I eat only Cox's medium-sized apples at 80 calories. I am stamped fudge packer. I pack in fudge. For russets are fat-free. You teach me homo in a language of reduction. I juice myself, turn myself to cider, is flammable. You brand me faggot, which means kindling. I learn to burn. My body disappears when you say poof. Thank you. This next piece is called Intestines. The total surface area of your intestines is about half the size of a badminton court. September 3rd, 2005, 10 past 12, period 4. I spew my guts on the school sports hall floor. My intestines are athletic. They move food with a wave-like pattern of muscular actions, peristalsis. I know what I want derives from the Greek. My thoughts, long, hollowed, coiled tubes that lead to the anus. Fit boys, call me faggot. a type of food. The intestines absorb the nutrients, then force out the waste into the rectum, where nerves create sensations that make you feel like a shit. But I cannot pass it. Gathers in the stomach, my second brain. It makes me bottom heavy shuttlecock. It piles until it fills. Could we scroll up, Steve? Sorry, the comments are blocking the rating. Apologies. Thank you. Until it fills my liver, heart, lungs, esophagus, oral cavity. It makes me sick. Humans breathe about 25,000 times a day. Humans are the only animal to blush. Thank you. So this next piece is called Shame Stone. And that idea of those first three poems, I suppose, explore the effects of queer shame and feeling unnatural. And this is how that's manifest in my adult life. So this is Shame Stone. Ages 5 to 26, when a boy stares, glares, smirks, smiles, kisses, my face flushes as blood rushes, pushes my shame to the surface. A stone at the center of my cherry. Tart flesh surrounds a pit with a kernel inside, the drilling worm that turns green apple red. My segments, banana skin, pesticide preservative packaging, seed deseeding, ripening, mold, rain, roots. I'm 5 a day, cricket ball small, shame rises, bobs on my body of water. It unfolds like a note passed around class. Is my shame like that boy from school who passed that note around, who I didn't like then and don't like now? Is my shame like the first boy I dated, who made me hard, who sucked me dry, who shoved me to the side of my life, who made me put pen to paper to write him sonnets? Does my shame feel like 90s comics, Judge Dredd, Dandy from my childhood, juxtapose images, actions, snatches of dialogue, something I hang on to but mean to throw away? A comic book baddie nobody can destroy, the Joker, how bent on taking me hostage, taking over the city of my mind, a comic book superhero who has a unique view of themselves, the universe. Not everybody gets to have a superhero who can turn shame's poison into petrol, into medicine, into poetry. All these shame selves live in this Russian doll. I can't remember who first threw shame stone into the sea of me, but I remember each ripple. I'm still feeling each ripple. Thank you. So this is the first poem I wrote for the pamphlet when I became obsessed with this idea of the queerness of nature, and it's called We're Animals, and it reclaims that idea that queer people are animals in the eyes of homophobes. So we're animals. We're cubs. We're otters. We're up each other like rats up drain pipes. We take the bull by the horn with the worm that turned. We're the pink sheep of the family. We're a wolf in our mum's clothing. We're a bee in Gran's bonnet. We're elephants in the room. We're flies on the wall. We're sitting ducks, we're scapegoats. Thank you. So this next piece is inspired by J. Stalin Passant's collection, Thinking with Trees, which I know he was interviewed for a previous issue with Spelt. It's a collection that meant so much to me, and it was that idea of just feeling othered in the natural world, and it interrogated who is nature for? And whilst Jason's collection looked at that idea through race, I wanted to write a poem about looking at queerness and who belongs in nature if you're a queer person. So this is called My Queer Mind Goes for a Walk. When I stroll through Norfolk woodland, bluebells, blackberries, golden wander, cheese and onion crisp packets, my body passes other walkers on the straight path. My epidermis feels the peepers burn questions into my flesh, as if I am prey, predator. Is that a queer body among brambles, ivy, a broken bike? Why does he mince through our woodland? Is it to cruise for sex? The sly foxes are at it like rabbits in the dog rows, cow parsley, fag packets. I am here to wander, to exercise, to smell wet sedge, to hear jays sing, to spy munkjacks, badgers, squirrels, weasels, hedgehogs, to see me as just another animal. Thank you. So this next piece is called Outsiders. Behind bushes of ripe leaves, drooping like limp wrists, I enter the warrens of dark, dripping, meandering corridors, to a place between places, and nowhere, and everywhere, another world inside this world, a wildlife within the wildlife, where we fallen fruit trees, all uprooted, bearing our rings, create a club within the scrub. I kneel in front of him. His fly cracks open like a chrysalis, then the slow unrolling. I plant my mouth, inhale, exhale, my breath passes through his wind chime body until we become a shower of dandelion seeds. We wish to reclaim our nature, to be outsiders, to be easy in our bodies outside. Thank you. So this is a piece called Oscillation. Where I walk in High Kelling Woods, I get absolutely obsessed with the tree scratchings where people write their initials in hearts. And I always wonder where those people are now. So this is a poem about one of those that I saw. This is called Inosculation. Inosculation is a natural phenomenon in which the trunks, branches, roots of two trees grow together. It's most common with trees of the same kind. The branches first grow separately in proximity to each other until they touch. Then bark abrades away as the trees blow in the wind. They self-graft, they grow together, expand. Ambling alone through High Kelling woodland, I clock tree-carved cave art, your names in hearts. GS, GG, 1997. Were you two boys, both penknife sharp, who met in this woodland just to explore? Did you find shelter in each other? Did your trunks inosculate, limbs bending around one another? I kiss your names. I hug your hearts. Thank you. So this is a poem called Queen. In lockdown, when I didn't have any gay scenes around me anymore, as I said, I was starting to find that kind of queer scene in nature. And this is a poem about kind of finding that queer brethren in a bee of all things. So this is called Queen. Alone during COVID-19 lockdown, I trudge away the days through Norfolk woods, dreaming the 10-watt sun to be pink strobe, thick fog to be dry ice, hot breath, raindrops to be glitter, wet ground to be sticky with sweat, spilt shots, longing to find a mate. Then I hear him, a bee, fizzing with want. See him in yellow, black, waspish, a queen can lay 2,000 a day in summer. I watch him buzz round heather, rosemary. Bees communicate by waggle dancing to show other bees where the nectar is. Part of a colony, but not right now, happy, drinking in the natural world. Smell, spilt Jack Daniels, Tennessee honey. The fog becomes dry ice, the sun a strobe. Thank you. So this is called Wild Flowers. Hoary plantain, corky fruited dropwort, purple loosestrife night flowering catchfly. You plants in the wrong place, I pick you up. Unwanted in nature's man-made spaces, farm fields, playing fields, backyards, public parks, I want you. I take you in my basket. How? Your shades of green deemed unsightly, mantis, crocodile, Islamic, jungle, neon, hookers. I pressed you between hardcovers. I don't label you weeds. I name you hedge bedstraw, oxeye daisy, corn cockle, bladder campion, forget-me-not, vetch. I preserve you, you wild flowers who thrive in nature when you survive all seasons, each bud punching through mud to unclench tiny fists, to bloom eternally. Long after man who said you don't belong, tansy, scented mayweed, cocksfoot, Timothy upright, shepherd's purse. Thank you. So I think this is the penultimate poem. This is called Gardening and how you can create your own little queer Eden through gardening. So in Sheringham, I have a small cottage garden that spills onto the shingle beach. The only wall that borders it is horizon. I plant pansies, tie-dyed roses, green carnations, violets, rainbow wallflowers. I want creeping Charlie to overrun flora, take up space, coalesce, create new forms. In my Eden, I'm God, Mother Nature, no one, forbidden, entry, fruit. Thank you. And I will leave you with this one. Lots of friends of mine, I work predominantly in theatre, as Wendy said, and they live in London and can't understand why at 28 I live in the countryside. Because they all think they have more fun and more sex than everyone else, and they really don't. So this is a poem about that. This is called How Queer I Live on Norfolk Coast. I will leave you with this and then hand back over to Wendy. Thank you so much for listening. How queer I live on Norfolk Coast. A sudden gust turns the reed bed to whispering sea. The wind blows me to wander lonely as a queer, to see all these trunks thick to the touch, their exposed skins glistening. I belly slide along muscular arms, become bird, lizard, caterpillar, crepuscular squirrel, to gaze down on village people, tourists cruising, daddies hammering pegs, erect tents to camp, duckies, otters, foxes, flies, free-ranging cocks, bushes, cottages, pansies, dirt tracks, dikes, everything, always opening, everything always coming out. Thank you very, very much. I've been James McDermott. As I said, this is a pamphlet that will be coming out in December from Broken Seat Books. I don't yet know what it's called, but do look out for it. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Bloody tastic. That was amazing, James. It was just incredibly intense and powerful and brutal and strong, and all that intensity and momentum in those poems. I just absolutely loved it. Just a phenomenal reading. Thank you so much for coming along. Check out the comments because everyone else loved it as well. Just brilliant. Right, we are going to take a 10-minute break for you to refresh your brains and refresh your glasses and go along and, you know, buy some copies of my magazine, our magazine, and donate to the magazine and give us some money. Take a break for 10 minutes. We will be back with some more contributors. And in the second half, we have got Polly Atkin as well. So what a fantastic night. See you in 10 minutes. That was a cracking first half. Absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Just, I think sometimes about what we're trying to do with the magazine and how we are trying to create a platform that moves away from some of the more traditional rural themes, and we're trying to create a platform that can be grown as well. Our big thing is that we want to grow the magazine into different things. We want to have outreach programs and all of these things that I think are a really good idea. And it's really great. This issue in particular, I think, as we are growing towards some of the ideals that we want of inclusivity and different ways of looking at the rural identity, rural aspects, rural relationship with people and people's relationship with rural. So to have James here tonight giving just such a splendid reading is just a bit of a dream come true, really. I was thinking while he was reading how great it is to be just a teeny tiny part of that journey and how humbling it is to be part of that journey. It's just fantastic. We need more diversity. We're very aware that the magazine needs more diversity, but creating that, one of the things that we're up against with that is that the same sort of gatekeepers and the same reach that people who are trying to experience nature from non-traditional backgrounds are facing. So you have to sort of, if there isn't a door to go through, you have to create a door to go through, and that's what we're trying to do. And it is hard work, so it is just brilliant to see it growing more towards what we'd like it to grow towards. I'm waffling. It's because of this. My husband brought me this halfway through the first half. I don't usually drink while I'm doing an event. However, here we are, wind up and waffling. And we are going to start the second half with more contributors. And we have got first up, Evie Holder. Evie. Make yourself known. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi,
you look,
right.
You look gorgeous tonight, Evie.
Oh, thank you very much. Not so bad yourself.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, and this is another one of those that I immediately was like, oh, I think it's because I live by the sea as well. So I was like, oh, Saltwick Bay, I know that. But I love Evie's work anyway. We've met a few times. And again, it's just lovely to have Evie reading for us and in the magazine. So let me introduce her. Yorkshire-based Evie Holder draws on her UK and Caribbean heritage and explores themes of landscape, politics, migration, love and loss. She enjoyed writing poetry during her school days in Hull and took it up seriously in later life. Winner of the Helen Cadbury Prize 2021, awarded by the York Poetry Prize, she is widely published in anthologies, journals and online by Smith Dorstop, Valley Press, Untold Hull, High Wards Poetry, Pennine Platform, Nine Pens and Arachne Press. And like I say, it is lovely to have another Yorkshire woman here tonight reading. So I shall hand over to you, Evie. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Wendy, for that introduction. And yes, it's nice to catch up again. Actually, many years ago, when Clint Wassling brought to a workshop that Wendy and I were at, he's a writer and a geologist. He brought as a prompt for some poems a set of ammonites and rocks and bits and pieces among his possessions. And I remember my heart sank because it just wasn't for me at all. But over a period of time, this is a poem that emerged from that, a bit about obsession and love and so on. So it's refers to St Hilda's, which is the abbey on the cliffs at Whitby on the North Yorkshire coast in the UK. St Hilda has an ammonite named after her, Hildocerus bifrons. And because she was believed in the mythology to have cast out snakes from the top of the cliffs down onto the rocks and the sands below, and they turned into stone and became the ammonites that we find today. So some of the terms in this poem are to do with the textures and the and the appearance on Ammonites. Love Affair, Saltwick Bay. Gulls skirl and wheel above St. Hilda's. Bells toll in the low-slung sky. You down tools. Time to give in to the tide. But oh, for one more chance, one touch. And there she is. You tap, turn the grey body over, trace a thumb down her ribbing, her spines, lappets, suture lines. Your fingertips feather metallic walls, a glisten of snakes. How you're hauled in, umbilical, back to the keel and calm. In deep with Hildocerus bifrons, that free, dead weight of her in your palm.
Just fabulous, just fabulous. Thank you, Evie. And next up, we've got Abby Flint. Abigail Flint, make yourself known, please.
Hi, Wendy.
Hello, hi. Lovely to have you here tonight. And another one that just brilliant poem, just brilliant. Let me introduce Abigail to you. Abigail Flint is a heritage researcher from Sheffield with a long-standing interest in people's entanglements with landscapes and other than human animals. Her poems have been published or are forthcoming in a range of magazines, including Under the Radar, Ink, Sweat and Tears, Atrium, Reliquae, Pop Shop Quarterly, 192 magazine, Consilience and Research Project anthologies. And it is such a delight to have you here with us tonight, Abby. Thank you so much for giving up your time for us. Take it away.
Oh, thank you, Wendy. It's such a joy to be included in Spelt. I was so excited when I got my acceptance. I've wanted to have a piece in Spelt since it started. And as someone who grew up in rural Holderness, I want to really thank you and Steve for creating this really powerful space for different kinds of writing about the rural. So here's my little slice of rural childhood. Watching her skin the rabbit. First, the sink is prepared. Pots washed and put away, draining board newspapered. Hair is slicked and tied back. Apron brought in from the porch, browned vinyl, branded OXO. Sleeves rolled, my mother takes the rabbit, dog-mouthed to our door. My eyes trail it swooning from her hand, fur silvered with spittle. Tiptoes on the lino, I lean in to catch the first cut.
Just brilliant, just brilliant. It's so intense, and that delicious way that you have spaced that poem and kept it so that each line is like a scalpel cut. Just wonderful, just wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, Steve, you're up introducing the next one.
I am, and I'm totally on it this time because I don't really know. I don't know why I keep stopping sharing the poems between them rather than just scrolling down, which makes this whole process a lot easier. So yeah, my second and final introduction of the evening. As I look at myself, I appear to have gone. The lighting in this room is particularly awful. Now it's gone darker. I appear to have gone a rather ghoulish shade of blue, which I quite like. But anyway, next up we've got Matt Nicholson, who. Yeah, it's someone I've known for what feels like many years now, over the years, and seeing him about at various poetry events and things across from the east to the west side of the country, usually around sort of the same strip band of the country. But here's his bio for those who don't know who he is yet, and shame on you if you don't. Matt Nicholson is an East Yorkshire-born poet and performer who lives at the outer limits of the cultural halo emitted by the city of Hull. What a phrase. He's travelled to all corners of the kingdom to read his singular blend of dark and tender poetry. He is currently completing his fourth collection of poems, due out next year on Yaffle Press. Now, depending on when he wrote that bio, that might mean it's out this year, but please do tell us if that's the case, Matt. There's one other thing that it may or may not say at the bottom of Matt's bio, which is that Matt Nicholson still believes that the pinnacle of his life was performing after Steve Nash at a gig in York put together by Wendy Pratt. So yes, I mean, aim high, kids, but yes. So I'll throw it over to Matt anyway and stop rambling at you. Matt, is that collection out this year?
It is out this year in May, Steve. Thank you very much. I'm quite happy to be your support act anytime, don't worry. Thank you very much, Wendy and Steve. I'm very grateful and chuffed to be in Spelt again and to be able to read this poem for you. This is one of a number of thumbnail character poems in my new collection, which is coming out in May on Yaffle Press, and it's going to be called Untanglement. I guess I have to flag the use of a rude word in this poem in case anybody hasn't heard a rude word before, or indeed in case anybody might be offended by such things. This poem is called Holding Up a Mirror. I found him unlost by the roadside, amongst the straggled grass and McDonald's debris. He passed unstanding his rubber black fingers round the cast-off husk of a wagon tire, made me doubt the invention of razors. Spitting as he coughed, made me gasp out loud at the depth of his stench. You got a cig, he asked, from somewhere under his shell, or you can fuck right off. I heard him bark like an otter as I got into the car. The short journey home took forever in traffic. Thank you.
Just fabulous. Just fabulous. Thank you, Matt. Okay. Next up, yes, Sarah. Sarah Thomas, are you there?
I am.
Hello, hi.
Hi.
Now, you have had some really exciting news today, haven't you?
I have, yes.
Yeah, you have got a nature/memoir book that was in the bookseller today, being announced, published by, is it Atlantic?
Atlantic, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
And
Yeah.
it's called The Raven's Nest, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And it's going to be out in July 22. They've expedited the publication date because they think it's really of this moment, which is very exciting.
That is absolutely phenomenal. It is so hard to get to that stage, to get a book, to write a book, to get agented, to get to a publisher, and then to get it in the bookseller, get it out is just an incredibly hard journey. And I just wish you absolutely all the best luck with it in the world. And we are so proud to have had you, Sarah, as one of our columnists. It's just been an absolute delight. You produce beautiful work, beautiful work. And Sarah's another columnist that we are saying goodbye to with this issue. I get a bit emotional about it because we've had this journey for a whole year together, our columnists, and a big part of Spelt and that continuity of it. So let me introduce Sarah. Sarah writes creative non-fiction and has been published in The Guardian, Dark Mountain, Earthlines magazine, Caught by the River, and in the anthology Women on Nature, amongst others. A PhD in creative writing resulted in The Raven's Nest, a memoir set in Iceland's West Fjords where she once lived. It was longlisted for the Nan Shepherd Prize, shortlisted for the Fitzcarraldo Essay Prize, and is published by Atlantic this year, presumably. Did you say May this year? And it is her, sorry? July, sorry. And it is her first book. And what a fantastic way to end your columnist position at Spelt. Thank you, Sarah. Take it away.
Yeah, no, it's quite a day, isn't it? I'm delighted. It's a really good day. And thank you so much for having me on, as a Spelt columnist. It's a rare gift to have no brief. And I found it a really lovely way to sort of hone myself into a place, because I only moved to Galloway just before COVID, actually. So it's been like a rhythm for me, a pulse. And it's not been difficult to find things to write about. Tonight's extract, I'm going to read from an essay I wrote called Tree Rhythms, which was about the sort of rapid succession of Arwen and Barra, the two storms that were with us in, I think it was November, December time. So yeah, there's not time to read the whole thing, but I'll just read a bit. Steve, could you scroll down? I'm going to start from I got home. Yeah, great, thank you. I got home and boiled the kettle before I became aware that I was a lucky one. The villages either side of me were without power, but mine remained connected. Frost sparkled outside, cold, colder. It would go on for days. Those with wood-burning stoves could at least stay warm, but what about those without? We got 300 quid compensation though, said my stove-owning friend Patty, who had 3 days by candlelight. Quite nice, apart from not washing properly. Not long after, Barra burst in noisily. My stove did little to warm me that night. Degrees of heat whipped from the walls, wind licking at the house. My body sat it out, taut, on edge, waiting for something to give. I wanted to hide under a duvet. Come the morning, in my immediate nearby, there was an abundance of scattered twigs for kindling, but everything large appeared to have held together. I wait a few days this time before attempting to travel. A little further down the road, it is a different story. Phone lines hang limply, yanked down by falling trunks. A man is dissecting a tree in his garden, its trunk and boughs spread-eagled across the lawn. It'll keep him in logs for several winters. Freshly sawn orange circles peer out at the road like blank faces, transects of time, circles, inside circles, inside circles. By a measure of tree rings, I have witnessed millennia in a glance. Along the loch side, slopes of plantation forestry meet the road steeply. Dangerously uniform, shoulder to shoulder, these trees' shallow roots are ill-equipped to withstand a shock, a change in prevailing wind direction. They were dominoes waiting to be flicked. Down a bit. Those verticals which beat their too regular pulse have lost all rhythm now. At 6s and 7s, the angles awry and awkward. A whole patch of spruce has taken itself down like a fallen stack of matches, the tangle of roots heaved skyward like scabs ripped from skin. The trunks lie crisscrossed, one upon the other, and on, and on. One tree caught under another is bent like a bow, straining its spring back to vertical. I feel coy inspecting the underside of roots, involuntarily exposed. This body of mine, used to mirroring these trees, upright to upright, does not know how to be here, how to move. It is drawn earthward in empathy.
Just beautiful, beautiful writing. Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you for being such an integral part of Spelt's first year. It's so appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. We have got Millie Light. Millie, will you make yourself known to us?
Hi, Wendy.
Hello, Millie. Nice to see you. Nice to have you with us today. Yeah, another fantastic poem. Let me introduce Millie to you. Millie is an emerging poet from West Cornwall with recent publications in Intersections, The High Window and a number of anthologies. Millie is also a social sciences PhD candidate at Ulster University in Belfast. Both her poetry and research engage with the entanglements of humans, non-humans and more than humans, with a particular focus on how such interconnections contribute to embodiment and mental health. And I am so excited to have you with us tonight, Millie. Thank you so much. Take it away.
Okay, yeah, thanks very much for having me. I'm thrilled to be in the magazine. I think it's beautiful. And I'll try my best to read it. I'm still quite new to reading my poetry out loud as well, so I'll try and breathe. So it's Kenneth Jack. My arms feel too heavy to swing by my side, favouring pockets or the crook of my back. I wonder if it's age or just the weight of politics, of life. On clear days, I race along cliff paths like a Pyrenean goat. On dull days, like today, with my head thumping like a drum, each tread brings waves of fatigue. I wonder if I'll ever fail to notice the sky's waking eye, the steady breath of the sea. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well done, Millie. That was beautifully read. Just lovely. And one of the things I think we do quite well with the magazine is that we have a mix of emerging and emerged writers. And I think it's just a wonderful thing to be part of the journey of someone who is in the emerging place in their writing. To be on that journey with them is just a wonderful thing, a real blessing. So thank you, Millie. Next up, we've got Sierra Carg, which I'm probably pronouncing wrong. Are you there, Sierra?
I'm right here. Sierra
There
Cag,
she is.
yeah.
Is it Sierra Cag?
Yeah.
Cag. Sorry.
No worries.
Okay. Fantastic. Oh, and I just love it. I love this piece of creative nonfiction so much. It was one of those ones that I read immediately, a second time, as soon as I'd finished it. Let me introduce Sierra to you. Sierra Cag is an American writer based in County Durham. With a keen interest in history and the personal and cultural significance of objects, her fiction and creative non-fiction explore themes of belonging and the experience of place, particularly the dynamic between the rural and the urban. Her writing is informed by the years she has spent living and working and studying and translating in the United States, France, Italy, Germany, and the United Kingdom. How wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, Sierra. I'll let you take it away.
It's a real pleasure to be here. It's so great to be included, and all the pieces I've heard so far have just been phenomenal. So it's great to be in good company. Right, this piece looks at the place where I grew up and the way things have changed in the US. If you've been following, it's been an interesting few years. So I won't be able to get too far into it because it's a longer piece, but here's the introduction. Bubbles and lines. Growing up in what was sometimes referred to as the Moscow bubble, I never felt isolated, despite what the map might indicate at first glance. Moscow, Idaho, is a small university town on the Palouse, a region of sprawling, rolling fields of grain and legumes in the American Northwest. It is home to the Vandals, the university's lackluster football team, the USA Dried Pea and Lentil Commission, the Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival, and a fundamentalist Christian cult, which is growing steadily, but still balanced out by a number of intellectual progressives and aging hippies. Distances are measured differently in this part of the world, in driving time rather than miles, with the nearest major population center located about an hour and a half away, major being a relative term. Between here and there, rippling hills are punctuated by farmsteads, some long abandoned, sagging with old red barns and lines of trees planted as windbreaks. Within a half-hour radius of Moscow, there are a few scattered logging towns, which are populated by a peculiar mix of right-wing libertarians and back-to-the-land organic farmers. Just across the border in Washington state, there is another small university town, the other half of a binary system. The combined pull of two universities attracts outsiders to a wider community that encompasses the academic and the rural, the secular and the intensely religious, the progressive and the tradition-bound. Years after I flew the nest, I gradually began to grasp the degree to which these opposing forces shaped the feel of the town, how different groups and subcultures lurched toward their respective goals, scoring points off their rivals, undoing their work, courting controversy. Now, as I observe this bubble from afar, from a tiny village on the outskirts of another small university town, surrounded by the fields and hedgerows of County Durham, I can see more clearly how my own sensibilities were shaped by a preordained combination of influences. Thank you.
Just beautiful. I love your style of writing. And I like that we have international pieces in our magazine and pieces that explore what the rural means in other cultures. And I just was absolutely fascinated by that one straight away. As soon as I read it, I was just fascinated by it. Wonderful, thank you. And next up, we've got Catherine Anna Marshall. Where are you, Catherine?
Hello, I'm here.
Hello.
Hello.
And Catherine is the last contributor that we're having tonight. And she is another one of our columnists who we are saying goodbye to this year at the end of this issue. And Catherine has never failed to bring something interesting and special and detailed to us. She is an absolute professional. She writes so beautifully, and I'm absolutely honoured to have had a platform that includes Catherine's work, because it is just beautiful writing. Let me introduce her properly. Catherine Anna Marshall is a poet from Colebrookdale, a village on the banks of the River Severn and home to the world's first iron bridge. Catherine's work explores themes around mental and physical health, body image and inequality, as well as the curiosity of living in an ex-industrial landscape that is slowly returning to nature. She also writes the occasional poem about cats. Hooray! Catherine has work published or forthcoming in Dyslexia, Pop Shop Quarterly, Sledgehammer Lit, and The Dawn Treader. She is currently working on a series of poetry postcards inspired by the work of collage artist Caris Jackson, and is seeking a good home for her debut poetry pamphlet. And it will get taken, it will get snapped up, that pamphlet. Fantastic. Thank you, Catherine.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. Yeah, I've absolutely loved writing my columns for Spelt each I don't know what to say, month, quarter, season. It's been a real cathartic thing for me, as well as just a lovely thing to write. So I'm starting a little bit lower down, Steve. I'm starting at most years, so you can scroll up or down, it's fine. But I'm also starting at the top just to confuse you, but it's okay. So here goes. Winter is a little like wading. I seek the soft promise of each lengthened day. My almanac drifts me to spring. Most years, I approach winter with trepidation. I mourn the colours of spring, the fact that warm days mean less pain, the sheer joy of long summer evenings outdoors. Winter brings dark, damp, lonely days, and whilst the thought of hibernation holds huge appeal, modern life does not permit it. There are traditions to navigate, like the puzzling New Year rituals around eating less and exercising more, that seem designed to make me feel terrible. I feel apprehensive as the clocks turn back. Will I make it through? Will I have another wave of depression or spend the months twitchy with anxiety? For me, giving close attention to my micro world has helped me connect to it. Having ME means it's easy to feel trapped by not being able to go off for a big long walk through the woods, or nip down to town without planning for rest stops and worrying about getting all brain foggy and lost. Feeling trapped leads to feeling resentful, of course, and this can stop me seeing the beauty on my doorstep. This year I've taught myself to see, allowed myself to be still and pay attention to the changes. I have an improved sense of place and certainty, despite the flux and flannel of everyday life. I've delved into the myriad of folklore that peppers our landscape and truly begun to embrace the wheel of the year. Most importantly, I've learned that the dark days of winter hold as much value as the light fluff of summer. Learn to see beauty in pale grey skies and to embrace these less flighty days as part of the wonder of the world on my doorstep.
Thank you so much, Catherine. That is just beautiful. What a beautiful way to end your residency as columnist. Okay, and now we are on to our second guest reader of the evening, who I am so excited to have with us. We've got Polly Atkins with us, and she is our author interview for this issue. And I also recently read her collection, Much with Body, and it is just a phenomenal collection. And I had so much joy interviewing her. I could have talked to her for hours because she is interesting and articulate and just talks beautifully about the writing process and how poems are created. And you are going to absolutely love this set, as am I. Polly, are you there?
I am here, Wendy. Thank you.
Let me introduce you properly. Polly Atkin is a poet and non-fiction writer living in the English Lake District. Her first poetry collection, Basic Nest Architecture, Seren 2017 is followed by Much with Body, Seren 2021. Supported and 2020 Northern Writers Award, her biography of Recovering Dorothy, The Hidden Life of Dorothy Wordsworth, Saraband 2021 is the first to focus on Dorothy's later life and illness. She's working on a memoir exploring place, belonging and disability. And I just think your work is so good and I'm so excited about this reading. I will let you talk now. Thank you so much, Polly.
Oh, thank you, Wendy, so much. And thank you everybody else who has read tonight as well. This has been just such a wonderful evening, such amazing work from all of you, just brilliant non-fiction and poetry. It's been a real treat. And my cat has gone away to sulk now, so hopefully she's not going to come and pounce on me partway through this. So I'm going to start with the Queen of the Woods. The green queen of the woods is dead. I found her skull becoming the forest floor, transmuting to moss, waving towards the thin light as fronds, so damp with reaching, whilst also sinking, becoming earth, whilst also rising out of it, a magnificent mushroom, greening from grey, with eye sockets and nasal sockets and the stubs of horns, like the god she is, scattering herself out into it, the green, re-becoming, feral, lost. The queen of the woods is dead. Long live the queen of the woods. Long may she thrive, may she thrive. All of these poems are true stories as well. The next one's called Photograph of an Owl, which is, as you'll see, a bit of a trick title. It's one of those slightly sneaky ones. There's an owl flying through this. You have to know it's there to see it, to pick it out, there against the stone, starting to rise to the trees on the ridge. It began at one corner of the shown universe, startled from its day haunt, by our casual voices, our footsteps crunch, crunch on the sun-dried bracken. Impossible to walk quietly this month on this earth, sick and dehydrated. Jolted into presence, a blurred, tawny scrawl across fragrant blue fellside, across grey crag speckled with luminous lichen. Silent, its silence, giving it up. Only owl is so there and so not. Huge and unhearable, unmistakable and unlocatable. Feather fleck or lichen, flying through this and out. And then next up, I'm going to read Hunting the Stag, which is one of these poems that, you know, when you write a poem and you have no idea what life it's going to take on. And I wrote this poem and I was like, I feel like this poem is doing something. Maybe it's just because I really like the stag. And one of the really wonderful things that's happened since this book came out is that people are really responding to this poem, which is making me exceptionally happy. So as I said, all these poems are true stories. This poem really is about a stag, but in a very Don Patterson-y kind of way. Maybe it also isn't about a stag. Hunting the Stag. The stag doesn't visit because you want him to. It doesn't work like that. He doesn't materialize when you go out to look for him with the good camera this time, coiled around your neck and your sheepskin hat with the ear flaps on. He does not trot down from the hill to greet you, tamed by your need. He has his own matters to attend to. What did you expect? You know what you become when you're like this. Too much, too much. Scanning for movement in the undergrowth, beady and atavistic. When you press your palm on the stone gatepost and wish, your wish is selfish. The heron passes asking, what are you missing when you only look for big things? A selfish wish never comes good. He is higher than you can walk today, or deeper. You cannot make him come to you. Not the great stag with his rustling mane, not even the small roe with his sapling antlers. He will be standing in the shadow of the side street when you lock up the shop. He will be standing in the shadow of the house when you stay out too long, talking to friends on the path through the trees about lost till the bells dissolve into mist and dusk and push you down to him. You will feel him before you hear him. You will hear him before you see him. He will seem to step out of the walls of your house or through them. You will think he is waiting for you, but you are incidental. He will go to a place you haven't worked for years, wade into the lake, bristling as swans ripple out from his image. Don't want so much. Come down from the woods, empty your pockets of pine cones and sticks. Light the fire. It doesn't work like that. Light the candles. Nothing does. And next I'm going to read a few little bits from the central section of my collection, which gives the title to the collection as well, Much with Body. And these are poems which are found and kind of collaged from Dorothy Wordsworth's late journals written when she was ill, and they're unpublished. There isn't even a transcript that's available to the public at the moment, although there is finally, after 200 odd years, an edition coming out sometime later this decade, which is so exciting. And I can't wait for people to be able to read those journals because they're just so amazing. I've stolen some of the best phrases in these poems, so you can get a hint of how good they are. But these are just some little tiny bits of these poems which try and do something slightly different with her words. The night very stormy, very ill. Why or wherefore I know not. Pain, sickness, headache, perspiration, heat and cold. Exhausted and free from pain, I slept. And a hail shower falls from dazzling silver, and dark clouds to remind us not to expect a calm. This evening, very stormy, rain by pailfuls driven against my windows. Large, dazzling clouds visit me, amiable, blustering, letters from a lost dismal house. In night, tremendous showers streaming down my windows. Tolerable, but very dark. Much harmed by sudden warnings, we are again fixed in my still helpless state, in convulsions and much with body. Rain and the dismal labor of walls fills the rooms with road, advances with speed, small red roses and green small leaf. But that is beautiful, solitary and my request. A sweet gleamy morning supplied me with various flowers till my legs bear me up no longer. Traveler. Poor thing, she has a weaning expectation. I do not venture out. I have had much pain, dark winds blowing, showers gathering, heavy rain, so ill as not to be able to dress. My limbs like marble, again in much pain, rain, rain, and gently, but rain. There's two other poems that use these transcripts in the collection as well. So Much with Body is a kind of series of these little fragments. And then there's a long poem called Dorothy's Rain, which is every reference to rain made in those transcripts. It's kind of 3.5 sides of rain. And then there's this smaller poem I'm going to read next called Mortification / Frequent Shipwrecks, which is another, I often think of things that are really good band names. Mortification, frequent shipwrecks. This rain must make and keep all persons and things dull. A great mortification, frequent shipwrecks. I do not regain my strength. I do not get as well as before. Blustering weather and self weakly. I feel the cold sadly, sadly after a dreadful, stormy, rainy night. The cold air wrecks me. I am fearful of the air. This cold, alas, alas. Disordered within, uneasy and weakly, feeble with exertion. So long have I been idle, oppressive with dullness and dark. Nothing remarkable. I do not gather strength. Very dark, melancholy myself, whistling wind and blue. Weakness oppresses me, dismal doom, torments. Night is here to tell me. So I've been thinking a lot about these rainy poems in the last few very, very stormy weeks. My first collection had a lot of snow in it, and I was doing a lot of readings from it during the winter of the Beast from the East. So I started to think in some way I was creating the snow. Obviously, I know I'm not really a weather witch, but you know, in that way, you kind of think, oh no, there's too much snow. So I kept saying, oh, in my next collection, I'll write lots of sunny poems. And instead I did a whole book about rain. And well, we have seen a lot of rain, haven't we? And I live in a house that has a rotten roof, which needs replacing. So every time it rains heavily, water tries to come in somewhere or other. And it reminded me, the next poem I'm going to read is from my first collection. And it was from when I lived in the first house I lived in Grasmere, which is actually opposite the house I live in now. And the ceiling fell down. So not the roof in that house. It was a dry collapse rather than a wet one. So I thought I'd just read this in honor of our collapsing roof. This is called Sky Falling. In the eaves of the ceiling above my bed, a hole is becoming, a web in negative, spinning itself. We're done with spiders, there's only me here and scuttling matter. Cracks fork out in the plaster like lightning, a spiral of emptiness, pressing the air into sheets and pushing. The outside is trying to bore through my casing and let itself in. It will win, no question. It's there in the pattern. White split by black into segments, spokes of a wheel which will roll down into me, whether I choose it or not. It will move me. It grows, a rose window. Blooming, it makes this upturned ship of a room, a cathedral. It widens like an eye to the sky. It cries, build your telescope now and be ready. The stars are weighty, the planets grow heavy. This attic's the skull of your wood and slate body. This hole is your mind's observatory. Allowing its scope is affording enlightenment. Space will drain in as water drawn onto a plug hole. Your soul will swell like a seed in the rain, fat with potential. Think how the spheres will peer in as you sleep, and your dreams, so human and small, will meet their cold beams as they fall and enlarge in their light fields to something immeasurable. It's almost inevitable. All it requires is time and the courage to give in to gravity, strength to do nothing. Look, even now the lid opens. Lie back and watch the sky falling. I'm very lucky, really, that it never did fall on my head, because that's what I was convinced it was going to do. They came to fix it before that. So what I'm hoping is that they're going to fix our roof before it also falls on our heads. Just a couple more poems left. The next one's called Bluebell Season, because soon it will be Bluebell season. So we have to have something to look forward to, don't we? This is what you wanted, isn't it? Everything bluebells and you giddy with it, dunking your face in the swell of them in the late light. The cuckoo concealed on the common, the wrens in the bracken, the ravens on the crag, impersonating. The trees talking to you, telling you how much it means to them to be waving their limbs in the high sun, ecstatic. The deer in the small copse staring up at you, drunk with it, as you drop back down to your human life. You're thinking about yourself, divested of the self again. You do it often, putting yourself in second person. What you mean is I wanted it. This bluebell high, the deer transfixed by my human body, unable to move forward or backward until I remove it and its history. You wanted out of it, this alarming body, its scent of harm. You carry it home all the same. From one Wordsworth to another, the next poem is Leeches, which is part of a sequence called V/S, which is short for venesection, which is opening the veins. I have to have pints of blood taken out to treat me for a condition called genetic hemochromatosis, which is basically a toxic buildup of iron in the blood. And as someone with a background in romanticism, all my friends found this hilarious. So they were like, what, do you have to get leeches? No. But then a strange thing happened on the way to the hospital, as things do, which fed into this poem, Leeches. Leeches have 300 teeth. Leeches leave a bite mark like a peace sign. Leeches excrete anesthetic when they pierce your skin, like emla cream. Leeches are precious. A medicinal leech is hard to find. We are listening to the radio on the drive to the hospital. Natural histories, a half hour of leeches. A leech is a doctor, a leech is a fiend who sucks you dry. A leech is a bad friend, a good leech will save lives. Leeches are curious. Leeches migrate around a body. Victorians tied strings to their leeches and let them roam, mine the body's unseen continents, drain what they couldn't control. I consider the grace of leeches, the diaspora of leeches, the harvesting of leeches to extinction. An old man reads a young man's poem in which a leech gatherer on a lonely moor becomes a beautiful cure, the last leech in England. And I think of him now as I lay on my bed, a needle in each elbow crook, the cold saline dripping in, the hot blood dripping out, skulking in a pool on the weary moor, a small striped ghost, very beautiful, very precious, very good. So I've just got two more poems. We're returning to the deer first. And this is called The Long Dance. This was inspired by a conversation with another writer, Brian Layden, who is doing a distance learning MA at Lancaster University at the moment. And we were talking about the creative life, and he started talking about the red shoes. And he said, but you just hope it's a long dance. So I thought, yes, the long dance. And it's got a little quote from Don Patterson at the beginning. Dear God, poor du fou, I thought, it's the poetry again. This is how it starts. The shoes dance towards you, about you, skittish as the deer you meet at twilight at the brink of the woods, who seem to be waiting for you to follow the path they've beaten through the scrub. The way they pause, turn to you, watch till you move to move on. And so you follow, glowing with stealth like the moon. And if the moon is huge as a pool light in the night window of the lake, you can't be blamed if your body tips to its gravity, tumbles into its luminous mouth and through it. This is how it gets you. You write because you have to. You write until it hurts in the bones and the tendons of your hand, under the covers after lights out, under the desk when you should be attending to other lessons. Your fingers ink-stained and bent to requirements of the pen. Long after you switch to computer from paper, your hand retains the callous cushion of the pen rest on your middle digit. How it pushed the distal phalange away from the rest of you, marking its own direction. You think this sign will always be with you, but 1 year it's gone. No warning. The body resets, recovers, finds its route like water, the law of least resistance. You write to live. You try to live well, to keep moving, to watch from the tree line, to make the fall a long dance, to come back down from the trees to your fireside, your solid stone walls, week after week, year after year. to remember the moon is a portal, to not reach when you don't want to travel. The shoes inch toward you, nuzzle your ankles, warm breath, soft tongues. Of course, you put them on. You let them put you on. Are we okay to carry on for one more, Wendy? Yeah, okay. So this last one is a poem made up of lines from other people's poems, which is called a cento, or I've heard some people say cento as well. I honestly have no idea. It's one of these words I see written down and don't often hear people speak. So you can see at the bottom where all these lines come from. And at the beginning of the pandemic, people kept sharing this Kathleen Jamie poem, Locken. And I realized this line, when all this is over, is in so many poems. I just wondered what would happen if you started to put them all together. And that's before someone did a whole anthology of when all this is over too. So this is when all this is over is over. When all this is over, I mean to travel north by the high, unapproved roads, through silver birch and pine, each body a lion of courage, feeding redwoods, stalking the shoreline, probably in June, when all this is over. When all this is over, we'll follow a path. When all this is over, I plan to go north. There will be no God when this is over, rolling their trash bins out after all of this is over. When all this is over, I mean to retire where I have made of my life something particular and real from the mossy mountainsides. Here is what I will miss. When it's over, I want to say, nobody will have heard about my special skills. When all this is over, I mean. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my God, what a phenomenal set, just incredible. And one of the things that we talked about when I was interviewing you for the magazine was how much I admired your found poetry in particular, and how you would take the works of other writers and other ways of exploring writing and exploring existing within nature and put them into poems. And I'm absolutely blown away by what you've done tonight. You read so beautifully. I could have just had another hour of you reading, just phenomenal. So thank you, Polly, and thank you, James, and thank you, contributors. You have been wonderful. Can we unmute to give a proper round of applause, please? Thank you. Yes, just brilliant. I feel enriched by tonight. And also thank you to Steve, who does all the tech and all the layout, but also is an integral part of the editing process. Steve is an editor himself, and I'm loving what he's doing with the Urban Rural. It is just brilliant. And thank you, everybody who came tonight to listen to these poems and listen to the contributors and the columnists and the creative nonfiction and our guest readers. It has just been a beautiful way to launch issue 4, our first year of Spelt. So I'm going to let you go now to enjoy the rest of your evening. Cheers, everybody. Take care, and thank you again. Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Brilliant.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, Sarah. Bye.
Bye.